Hey friends, welcome back. I have another pottery tutorial for you today. I'm super excited about this project because spring is in the air. I mean, it's coming super soon and berry season is coming super soon. So I'm really excited to share this tutorial with you. If you don't know me, my name is Maya. I run a studio here in Berlin called Pottery to the People. Let's get into it. For this project, I'm grabbing from my pottery stash a rolling pin, our thickness gauges, my knife, my scoring tool, a rib, a hole cutter. What else do I need? This guy as well. This is just a nice wooden tool to smooth things out. Oh, and of course I'll need my paintbrush because I'm going to be using slab. Something I grabbed from my kitchen is this bowl. You want a rather shallow bowl for this project because I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a drape mold, and those really only work when the bowl is pretty shallow. And then I'm going to be using a white stoneware clay for this project from a local supplier here in Germany. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to be giving my clay a little wedge. If you don't know what wedging is, I have a video about wedging and I'll link it down below, and that will show you how to wedge and why. And then I'll start by rolling out a slab. So I'm going to be putting my slab on the inside of this bowl here. So I'm going to need to make it at least as wide as the bowl and like enough to compensate for the depth of the bowl. I also forgot to mention you'll need some cloth as well. A rather thin cloth will be the best for this project. A natural fiber though. So this is just like some thin cotton cloth that I don't know where it's from. I just have it. Okay, I think that's enough. So now, as always with slabs, I'm going to be compressing the slab with my rib. So now I'm going to take my bowl and I'm going to cover it with a cloth. So instead of a cloth, you could also use like, I think people use like Vaseline or like cornstarch, things like that. There's a few different tricks for not having the clay stick to the piece itself, but if you're using like a non-porous thing like I'm using here, if you just stick the clay right in, it's going to stick to the ceramic. So that's why you need to have some sort of barrier in between. I've always just learned to use a cloth, so I'm going to use a cloth. So I'm just going to carefully drop it in. And then try and push it in there without letting it fold. You can do these drape molds on either the inside or the outside, doesn't matter. I just thought the bowl was a little bit big, so I thought, okay, I'll go on the inside. So now I'm going to take my knife and cut off the extra. So I want to make sure I hold my knife flat like this and not go like this or like this, so I have like a flat edge. And I'm going to turn the pot with. The first cut I'm going to do kind of rough. It doesn't need to be perfectly smooth. I'm just getting rid of the extra clay first. So now I want to let this sit for a little bit. Let's see. I'm going to let this sit. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in front of a fan. I'm going to put this in front of a fan for, say, 10 to 15 minutes. Let's see, I'll get back to you once I know how long I've had it. But if you can't put it in front of the fan, if you don't have a fan or something, you can put it on a heater, or you can just let it air dry for maybe an hour, something like that. I'll show you how it looks like once it's dry, and so you know sort of like what you're going for, and you can figure out how long you need to dry it in front of your own drying source. Okay, so I'm back. It's been about 15-20 minutes with my pot in front of the fan. But what I want to show you is that now it's like strong enough to hold its shape. It's still wet, like if I can kind of like move it. But it's strong enough to hold its shape, so I don't need the bowl anymore. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just clean up this edge a little bit. Because as you can see, it's quite sharp and just not very nice. So I'm going to start with my rib, and I'm just going to drag the straight edge along the edge here, and it's sort of picking up all that extra clay. And I'm just going to take my finger and kind of smooth the rest of it. So if you can't just smooth it with your finger, that means you left it a little bit too long to dry. That's all right. We can still work with that. Just what you want to do is add just a touch of water to your finger, just like a touch, and try and rub that into the edge. So what you don't want to do is add a lot of water at this stage, because like we just spent all that time letting it dry out, and if you add water then it's reversing it, and it's going to get much softer and it's going to start losing its shape. So you want to add as little water as possible right now. And now I'm gonna go ahead and add a rim on the bottom, like a foot for it, so it can be raised a little bit. I want to do this because if I'm gonna put holes in the bottom of here, and if it sits directly on the surface of the table, it's not gonna be able to drain at all anyway. So I'm gonna add a little foot, and then I'm gonna add 2 little handles, because I think that's, you know, what a berry bowl should look like. So I'll roll out some coils. So I'm gonna curl it into a circle, and then I could hold my knife like this, cut like this, and then you have 2 edges that fit up. I'll score. Because it's fresh clay, I'm not going to use slip. Just press the 2 edges together and smooth. Try and make that seam disappear. Great, now we have our little donut. Put it on. And I'm going to use my knife to trace where it's going to sit. I'm just tracing the outside, obviously not cutting it, I'm just tracing it, right? So I know where to score. So I'm going to flip it and score on the inside of that line that I made, because that's where the coil is going to sit. So I scored the donut as well, oops. And now I'm just going to drop it on here and do my best to squish the clay in, squish the foot in without distorting the pot. So what I'm gonna do is actually hold the other side, and this hand's fingers are right underneath this coil, so I can support the shape while I'm pushing it down. So I'm kind of squeezing the clay and pushing it into the bowl. All right, that looks pretty well attached. I'm gonna go in and smooth out any extra scoring marks with my wooden tool. I wanna like flare it out a little bit and make this a little bit less of a coil shape and a little more of like its own shape. So I'm just pinching the edges to give it a little more height. Trying to do it really evenly so it ends up all being the same width and height. So what I'm doing is I'm thinning the coil and I'm making it taller, basically. Okay. See? It's a really nice shape, actually. But I'm not done yet. I'm gonna add 2 coil handles to it. So for the handles, I'm going to actually get them to be a little bit thinner in the middle and thicker on the edge. So I'm going to continue coiling, but just in the middle. So you see my 2 fingers are pushing down in the middle. I'm also turning it as I go. This will add a nice taper to our handles. So by cutting them at an angle like this, I'm able to attach them to the side, and then they can sort of follow the curve of the bowl upwards. Hopefully from this angle, y'all can see better what I'm doing. Okay, so just like before, I'm going to mark where it attaches. And because this part is a little bit dry, I'm going to add a bit of slip. My slip is just dried clay mixed with water. I don't add too much water though. Don't want to let my pot become too weak. So I just add it to one side. I don't need to add it to the other one. And then place it. Be careful when you're smoothing it in to not mess up the shape of your pot. Great, now I'm gonna do the other one. Okay, I'm super happy with how this is looking, but I'm not going to add the holes quite yet. I actually want to let it dry out just a little bit more before I add the holes. And that's because, number one, I've put the pot already under a lot of stress right now with adding these handles. I introduced a lot of water, and when you put the pot under stress and when you add water, you run the risk of causing cracks. But also, if I cut my holes right now, I'm going to end up with like really sloppy holes because it's going to just like not want to cut very cleanly, you know, and so I'm going to have to do a lot of like cleaning up. And I don't want to do that, so I'm going to let my pot dry out a little bit more. I think what first I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it in plastic, let it sit, and then maybe tomorrow I'll come back and poke the holes in it. So I will see you then. Okay folks, so it's the next day and my pot is fairly dried out. So I can still, if I put a lot of pressure, I would still be able to move it. Do you see? It's kind of like, not much. Like I can kind of wiggle it, but it's pretty firm, which is exactly what I want. I have my small hole cutter. I don't know exactly how wide this is, maybe like 1/2 centimeter. You don't want it too small, so you want to make sure that there's still enough room so that the glaze doesn't seal the hole. So you don't want to use like a needle tool for this. You want to have like a decent sized hole. And then I'm just going to, am I going to do this in a pattern or am I just going to do this random? So start in the middle, put my tool straight in the middle. These tools are really handy for carving out holes. But if you don't have this, you can also use like a drill bit. I use that sometimes as well when I don't have this in the right size that I need. So I'm just kind of going for it. Like, it's good that the most of the hole is crumbling off. If you're not getting all of that out, you definitely want to wait till your pot's a little bit drier, but I'm going to leave these kind of scribbly bits on the top right now because it's going to be much easier later to just go back in with some sandpaper once this is bisqued and sort of smooth it all out than it would be right now to try and clean it all up. So I'm just going to let it be for now and get it fired. Okay, then I'm just going to start a circle around it and we'll see how that looks. So I'm going pretty close to where the foot starts because I don't want such a huge gap in here for functionality purposes but also for aesthetic purposes. So I'm going right up next to that foot, trying to keep them as evenly spaced together as possible. So I'm not caring about the squiggly bits on the top here, but I do want to make sure my holes are actually clear because this is going to be really easy to sand, but getting sandpaper in these little holes is going to be like basically impossible. So yeah, I'm just going to do maybe 1 to 2 more rows. Okay, so here's my cute little berry bowl. I'm so happy with this. This is so cute. It's something that I would never normally make, but I'm really happy with it. I'm definitely going to be using this summer. So yeah, I'm going to get it fired and glazed and I'll show you the final result right now. I'm super happy with how this berry bowl turned out. It's really cute. I love the shape and I love the foot, how it sort of like elevates it off the ground. The one thing that I did mess up is that I filled some of the holes with glaze, unfortunately. When I was glazing, I really knew this was going to happen. When I was glazing, the glaze was just a little bit too thick and I did poke a pencil through all of these holes to make sure that they were clear. But even though I did that, the glaze overall was just too thick and it kind of just dripped into the holes. It sealed about, I don't know, 5 or 7 of them. But it still works. Luckily, the holes in the bottom are all clear and I've already used it and it works just fine. So I guess that will just add to the charm of the piece. So I hope that was a fun project for you guys. That's it for me today. If you want to learn more about me and my studio, you can find me over on Instagram at Pottery to the People. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.